British Prime Minister Keir Starmer on Sunday condemned the violent anti-immigration riots that have gripped the UK after violent disorder swept across several cities fueled by misinformation about the murder of 3 young girls last week.
I utterly condemn the far-right thuggery we've seen this weekend. Be in no doubt, those that have participated in this violence will face the full force of the law. The police will be making arrests, individuals will be held on remand, charges will follow, and convictions will follow.
False claims spread after the girl's murder that the suspect was a radical Muslim migrant. Police have said the suspect was born in Britain and are not treating it as a terrorist incident. However, protests have continued across the country, including in Liverpool, Bristol and Manchester on Saturday, resulting in arson, looting and injured police officers. On Sunday, hundreds of anti-immigration protesters gathered by a hotel near Rotherham, which Britain's Interior Minister said was housing asylum seekers. Protesters threw bricks at police and smashed hotel windows before setting a bin close to the hotel on fire. Police said one officer was knocked unconscious and others had suspected broken bones. The National Police Chiefs Council said nearly 150 people had been arrested since Saturday evening and more would follow in the coming days. The last time violent protests erupted across Britain was in 2011 when thousands of people took to the streets after police shot dead a black man in London. Starmer was the country's chief prosecutor at that time. Community leaders and families of the victims of the murders in Southport, near Liverpool, have criticised the unrest. A group of faith leaders in Liverpool said in a joint statement that, quote, "Too many people have sought to use the tragedy to create division and hate."
CrowdStrike says it's not to blame for the recent flight chaos in the US. The cybersecurity firm said Sunday it had minimal legal liability over the disruption in mid-July. Thousands of flights were cancelled after a faulty software update from the firm caused computers around the world to crash. Delta Airlines chief Ed Bastian has said the outage cost his firm $500 million and promised legal action to get compensation. The airline cancelled more than 6,000 flights over a 6-day period, affecting more than 500,000 passengers. Over the weekend, CrowdStrike reiterated its apology. But in a letter from a lawyer, it also said it was disappointed by any allegation that it was negligent. The firm says it reached out to Delta to offer assistance when the outage occurred, but never heard back. Now it says the carrier should explain why it turned down free on-site help and why rival airlines were able to get their systems back online much more quickly. A CrowdStrike spokesperson said Delta should stop what it calls posturing about a meritless potential court case. There was no immediate response from the airline.
Tropical storm Debbie muscled up into a full-fledged hurricane late Sunday and is expected to continue to strengthen overnight. That's according to the U.S. National Hurricane Center, which expects Debbie to hit Florida's Gulf Coast in the Big Bend region by midday on Monday. It forecasts life-threatening conditions, including storm surges up to 10 feet in some areas. As Debbie slowly moves north through the week, the storm could bring historic rainfall of between 10 and 20 inches and catastrophic flooding to Georgia and South Carolina. The NHC also said local areas could receive 30 inches of rain by Friday morning. Jamie Rome is the deputy director of the Hurricane Center.
This really slow motion is just going to dump historic amounts of rainfall anywhere in this purple area.
The storm could be likened to 2017's Hurricane Harvey. While Harvey was downgraded into a tropical storm as it moved inland over Texas, it lingered over the state, dumping about 50 inches of rain on Houston. It's rated as one of the wettest storms in U.S. history, having caused more than 100 deaths and $125 billion in damage. Preparing for Debbie, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis called up 3,000 National Guard troops and placed most of the state's cities and counties under emergency orders. Mandatory evacuations were ordered in parts of several Gulf Coast counties. The governors of Georgia and South Carolina also declared states of emergency ahead of the storm.
Nigeria's leader called for an end to protests against a cost of living crisis, demonstrations which have left several people dead in clashes with police. Sunday's comments were President Bola Tinubu's first since protesters took to the streets last week.
I want to assure you that our government is committed to listening and addressing the concerns of our citizens. But we must not let violence and destruction tear our nation apart.
Amnesty International has said at least 13 people were killed in clashes with security forces on the first day of protests on Thursday. Police, however, deny using excessive force and say only 7 people had died as of Saturday, including those caused by an explosive device, and another where a person was shot by a guard when protesters looted a shop. Protester Ireo Oluwafemi said the president's words are inconsequential.
We are going nowhere!
We are going nowhere. What the president said this morning means nothing. It means nothing.
Nigerians have been protesting against economic hardship and bad governance and call for a cut in petrol prices and electricity tariffs, among several other demands. Protesters are angry with President Tinubu's economic reforms, which have led to rampant inflation. However, Tinubu has defended his reforms, which included reducing subsidies and devaluing the naira, as essential to correcting prior economic mismanagement.
European stocks joined a global sell-off Monday, but in calmer fashion than Asia. London's FTSE index lost around 2% from the open. The Pan-European Stocks Index slid a little more. Significant falls, but minor compared to the day of turmoil in Asia, where Japan's Nikkei index closed down 12.4%. That was its worst one-day decline since 1987. South Korea's Kospi index fell close to 9%, while shares around Asia outside Japan lost a milder but still painful 4.2%. Hirofumi Kasai is senior strategist at Tokyo Marine Asset Management.
I think there is a sense of panic selling. The trigger was concerns over the US economy and prospects of interest rates rising in Japan, after a more than expectedly hawkish tone from Bank of Japan Governor Ueda's news conference last week.
The stock tailspin set in last week after some worse than expected employment data in the US. That fueled fears that the country could be headed for a recession and spurred bets on rapid-fire rate cuts. Analysts at JP Morgan now say there's a 50% chance of recession in the country. The stock sell-off saw money flow into perceived safe havens instead, with the Japanese yen and Swiss franc both soaring. US and Japanese benchmark government bonds also saw strong demand, with yields tumbling. Adding to the gloom were weekend results from Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, which suggested the legendary investor has gone sour on stocks. He appears to have offloaded much of his holdings, including around half of his big stake in Apple. Investors saw a sign that Buffett is now wary about US economic prospects, or sky-high stock market valuations, or maybe both.
Photo shoot that Sydney Sweeney had to go through. Sydney Sweeney, a prominent Hollywood actress, has faced several tough circumstances in her career. One notable incident was a controversial photo shoot that drew backlash from the ballet community. The shoot featured Sweeney in pointe shoes, which led to widespread criticism after Canadian dancer and actor Brennan Clost posted a TikTok criticizing the styling and lack of dance experience. Clost pointed out the improper tying of the ribbons and questioned why non-dancers were chosen for such shoots. Ballet fans echoed these sentiments, deeming the shoot unsafe and insulting to those dedicated to ballet. The online criticism intensified, with fans expressing their dismay over Sweeney's involvement in the photo shoot. Comments ranged from concerns about safety to the perceived disrespect towards ballet dancers. Despite the uproar, Sweeney chose not to respond publicly to the controversy. Sweeney did, however, open up about a different challenging photo shoot experience. She recounted a lingerie campaign shoot where she felt unwell due to starting her period. Reluctant to use a tampon to avoid bloating, she became dizzy and nauseous. During the shoot, she eventually vomited, feeling embarrassed and overwhelmed. This difficult day was compounded by a personal conflict with a friend and harsh comments about her appearance on social media, leading her to break down in tears. Despite the ordeal, Sweeney reflected on the experience as a moment of growth. In another instance, Sweeney faced harsh criticism from film executive Carol Baum, who questioned her acting skills and appeal. Baum expressed her disbelief over Sweeney's popularity after watching her movie Anyone But You. Sweeney responded, expressing her displeasure over a woman attacking another woman and criticizing Baum's use of the attack as a teaching moment for her students. Throughout her career, Sweeney has encountered significant criticism, from her photo shoots to her acting. Yet, she has managed to navigate these challenges, choosing to learn and grow from these experiences rather than publicly engage in every controversy. Her ability to handle such situations speaks to her strength and professionalism in an often harsh industry.
Jets are in our sky, and officially today you see them, and it's good that they came and we can use them.
Ukrainian pilots will now be flying in US-made F-16s for operations within the country, said President Volodymyr Zelensky on Sunday. The long-awaited fighter jets arrived more than 29 months after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Zelensky said, however, the country still did not have enough jets or pilots. But he noted many soldiers are now undergoing training. It remains unclear how many jets Ukraine received and how much impact they will have on the battlefield. Kiev has long lobbied for the F-16s due to their destructive power and global availability. It currently has an aging fleet of Soviet-era warplanes.
We had hundreds of meetings and talks to strengthen the capabilities of our aviation, to strengthen the capabilities of our air defense system, of our defense forces. We often heard it is impossible as an answer, but we still made our ambition, our defensive need, possible. Now this is reality, reality in our skies. F-16s are in Ukraine.
The new jets come equipped with a 20mm cannon and can carry bombs, rockets, and missiles. Russia has been targeting bases that may house the F-16s and vowed to shoot them down.
A number of actions that came out of the meeting. The first is we will have a standing army of specialist officers, public duty officers, so that we'll have enough officers to deal with this where we need them. The second is we'll ramp up criminal justice. There have already been hundreds of arrests. Some have appeared in court this morning. I've asked for early consideration of the earliest naming and identification of those involved in the process, who will feel the full force of the law.
¡Viva!